My hands stable, I feel able to turn the tables. I could do this, just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like soreness.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Phil J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show, your one-stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe, you know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. Hey, Big Blue, how you doing, my man? You working tonight?
I do have to work tonight, man. If not, I'll be enjoying a nice cold Modelo or something. I need one. So tomorrow I'll be definitely enjoying a nice cold one. Had a tough week this week. So.
If you were gonna be drinking, I had one ready for me, man. But I don't want to be the only one, man. That's not cool. You know what I'm saying? So
you can drink if you want. I just have to work and have to make sure I'm responsible.
I hear you. Whoa, thank you, Angel D, for being a member for 5 months. Many more, a lurker. I apologize. I'm not feeling the best today, so my voice may not be all that great. Kind of got a little ill last night or yesterday, and I was hoping it would carry on into tonight. I mean, it'd be over after tonight or today, and it's not. So I might have to mute myself quite a bit for the cough. But we have a guest today. We've been covering the Bryan Kohberger case, the Idaho 4, and we had one of our subscribers hit us up, in the emails. And she's been kind of telling us a little bit about, her theories, and she thought that maybe perhaps, we have her come on panel and kind of give us those thoughts, and we can have a little bit of a discussion. She thinks there's a little bit more to the story. She thinks there's a little bit more to the case, that it's not just plain and simple. So, are you ready, Tara? I can see you in the bottom there. Just give me a thumbs up if you're good to go. I think she's ready.
Okay.
How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Hi, Blue.
Hello. How you
this
doing?
Is my Blue. I don't know if you can see her.
Yeah, we can see her.
Oh, you can see her. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I wanted to. So, you were emailing me. You're something going on there.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah, you got something going on, Tara. I'm not sure where the noise is coming from, but yeah, you had emailed me. You said that
Wait.
you.
Let me go. Okay, now it's better. Okay.
Yeah. So you had emailed me. You said that you'd kind of gone through some things. You sent me quite a bit of information. What about that information that interests you? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yes, it's coming in now. I think because there was so much going on at 3:00 in the morning, it was like a circus. You had people running in Banfield. You had the underage drinkers, which I really don't understand. The taxpayers are paying for this undercover cop to get underage drinkers that are walking. Instead, they go to the houses for noise on fraternity vote every day. Why don't they just ask to see the IDs?
Well, I mean, you got a couple of different scenarios there. And in college town, people walking around or being in Greek Row at 3 a.m. is probably not uncommon. In fact, I had a University of Idaho student come out on the channel before, and that was a question I had asked him. Well, she dipped out, and I'll answer this question, and we'll me and Blue will talk about it. You know, at 3 a.m, if somebody's walking out, that's the time that you need to go and check on them. You can't just, you know, check their IDs one time and then, you know, oh, if they're breaking the law later, just not look that way. That really doesn't make any sense. But we'll continue. Blue, what do you think? You know, do you think that there's more to? Do you think that there's possibly, you know, an accomplice or anything like that? That's what she was kind of sending me and putting out there on the email.
Let me unmute myself. There you go. Let me add her. Maybe I think she'll work better on the computer, the one that she's on. Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I think that would work better because your video was just like going back and forth.
Yeah, it was cutting out too much, and it was looking kind of weird there. But you know, to answer your question about, you know, what's going on at 3 a.m., you know, it's a college town. You know, I had a University of Idaho student, you know, talk to a University of Idaho student. I've asked them, is that common? And, you know, 3, 4 in the morning, sometimes 5. So it is not an uncommon thing. It was, you know, the last game, the Vandals, it was the homecoming game. So just because the girls didn't party that night doesn't mean that there wasn't parties elsewhere in the town or elsewhere in the
Correct.
neighborhood further down. And, you know, I know you had mentioned like Linda Lane, hearing some noises on that. I can tell you that I have verified that those noises aren't on the tape that is coming from the 1112 King Road, the one that's right next to it, that those noises
Yes.
are there at 3 a.m. So either the noises that you hear on the Linda Lane footage was either added to it or it was picking up from another dog or another person or another party in the neighborhood somewhere else.
Do you want to hear my alleged theory?
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Go for it.
So, Maddie and Kaylee, they went to the corner club. Ethan and Xana, they went to the fraternity thing, and there was a little fight there. And then Kaylee and Maddie go to the grub truck, and Xana talks to her dad at 12 o'clock and says they're home and they're doing fine. At 12:30, there's a bunch of people getting out of the car at Linda Lane. I don't know if it's one of them or not, but
Why would they be? Well, hold on. If they were going home, why would they be getting out at Linda Lane? I mean, that was about a football field away where that was.
Well, they were home. They were home at 12. So I don't know.
That's not accurate though. You know, just because a child tells their father that they're home and not partying it up or fixing to go to a party, you know, doesn't, you know, those things happen, you know?
Yes, you're right.
So, you know, I think that there's quite a bit of possibility there that she probably maybe have just, you know, said that to, you know, if her dad was worried or anything like that. And as far as, you know, people coming out at Linda Lane, you know, that camera is 100 feet away from, or 100 yards away from the victim's residence. So outside of that white Elantra passing by, or alleged Elantra passing by, there's not really much you're going to be able to see or hear from that video because it's a football field away, and it's in between it are apartment complexes. And so now we know from the probable cause affidavit that at 4:17 a.m. there's a dog starts barking. Well, at 4:17 on the Linda Lane footage, you can't hear a dog bark. So if you heard a dog bark at another time, it's probably not coming from that address, because if you couldn't hear it at 4:17, we wouldn't be able to hear it at 4:14 or 4:11. And if we are hearing something, it's probably from another house.
I believe that Xana and Ethan. Just go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you had mentioned there was a fight. I wanted to ask, where did you hear that information from? That there was,
From a lot of people in the comments, a lot online, that it was something about steroids or something with Ethan and Xana. And I think that they were brought to Linda Lane, and that's where Murphy was. And Murphy wasn't brought back till 4/17. So that's why I think you don't hear Murphy until then.
you know, I'm not sure why Murphy doesn't bark until 14. I don't think that he was elsewhere. I think he was in Kaylee's room that entire night before the alleged person that committed this crime ever walked into that house. Kaylee and Maddie went out that night. They went to the corner club. They were seen at the grub truck video. And so we know they were out. They didn't get home till almost 2 a.m. I would assume that, I have a few dogs, but if I woke up at 2 a.m. or walked in at 2 a.m., my dogs are most likely asleep. I'm not going to move them from where they're at. So I think that when Kaylee got home, it's 2 a.m., you're probably going to let your dog sleep. Thank you, Sonia D, for being a member.
Yes, unless they're barking or whatever. And as of Dylan and Bethany, I think we should show them some grace. I don't, because we don't have all the facts, and they're going to have to live with this, whatever happened, the rest of their life. Like, what if they just thought a party was going on and went back to sleep? Or, everyone knows their name now, and it's out there, and they have to live with that. And so I just feel awful for them. But, we don't have all the facts.
Right. Thank you, Anna P., for your amazing contribution. We appreciate that. Love you guys are respectful when covering all the cases and through various theories around them. Not sure if you're religious, and sorry if this is out of line, but please pray for Christian Armenian, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Right now we're going through a lot. Yes, prayers out that way. I am Christian. Blue, you are too, right? Or Catholic? You're muted.
I'm Catholic.
Blue's muted still, so it's probably for a good reason.
I said I am Catholic, but I'm one of those like rainy day Catholics. I'm just joking. I mean, I don't go to church every weekend. I'm sorry, guys.
Me neither.
But I am not feeling well.
If you do read the Bible, it does say He still listens to you when you're reading and praying in your own home. So
we can finish the show.
So you said that you heard these rumors of a fight, from comments and stuff. I understand that, and sometimes those things can be right, but I really don't pay attention to those too much until they're proven to be fact. We had gotten information that one of the surviving victims, the information that we had got was that one of the downstairs victims saw the killer enter the house, and that he was wearing a black mask and had bushy eyebrows. And that was the information that was sent to us. And I was like, well, we can't verify that. We can't vet that. So we never put that out there. And then when it came out, me and the guys were like, well, hell, I guess it's read right, and, sometimes those things end up being accurate. But for us, we tend to not look into that direction, because if there wasn't a fight and that didn't happen, you're adding, we would be adding more victims to this case that aren't necessarily need to be. And, so that's kind of the reason why we don't look into those type of things. Plus, I don't think there's been anything substantial to verify it. I think everybody that's been to that party has denied it, completely. So, they haven't been quiet about it. I think it would be a little bit more suspicious if they didn't say anything, I think Big Blue.
The last part broke up.
Yeah,
I said, what do you think, Big Blue?
Okay. Now let Tara talk and I'll go. So she had something to say then.
I think you're right. With all those frat members, that they couldn't all get together and lie. So we need to tend to focus on the facts, like you said. And as the facts that you know now, do you have reasonable doubt?
Do I have reasonable doubt? I mean, I don't know if he's 100% guilty. I haven't seen all the evidence. With what they have currently, I got a good feeling that he's the guy. You know, I can, somebody made me to bet one way or another, I would say it was him. Now, do I think that, with evidence they have now, that he would, even if he did do it, that he would be found guilty? Probably not. There's got to be something a little bit more concrete, in my opinion. But there's just a few things that when it comes to Bryan Kohberger and what he was doing that night, that just don't make sense as far as, maybe not don't make sense, but it would just have to be an astronomical coincidence to have happened for it not to have been him, right? And that being the car without the front license plate, driving around multiple times, matches his car. The fact that his phone turns off at 2:45 while he's in Pullman, and then doesn't turn, or 2:57 while he's in, or 47 while he's in Pullman, doesn't come back on until 4:48 when he's south of Moscow. The fact that there's DNA on an item brought into that house that didn't belong there, and it had DNA from him that they were able to confirm was his by a buccal swab to his cheek, and they were able to compare it to the DNA on the sheath to make a comparison, and they had somewhat a match for 5 octillion times or something like that. And so, I personally think that he did it.
I personally
Go ahead.
do too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this, and for me, I'm more on the side that he did do it. Now everybody's asking, did he do it by himself? I think so. I mean, that's my opinion. And I think the evidence by now, with everything that we've seen, you would think his defense team would have put something out there more to prove or try to put more like doubt in people's mind that it's not him. But also, like, look at the other case we were just watching, the Richard Allen case. They put doubt in my mind. They put doubt in my mind now. So, like, we'll see what comes up.
I think the phone is huge. Turning off the phone.
Yeah.
And I think that, in my personal opinion, it's 100% not possible to bring anything from the scene with you, like a skin cell or anything, even if you change your clothes. I just can't.
Yeah, that's not true. Like,
that happens quite a bit.
Like,
go ahead.
There's officers, forensics, surgeons, surgery folks, people that are in veterinary clinics. They have a certain apparel that they have to wear when they're doing certain things that doesn't allow for that to happen. Now, is there an instance where you can take the scene with you? Yeah. I mean, it happens, but it's not necessarily happens at every scene, especially if you're talking, if you're dealing with somebody who knows how. And that's the thing. That to me is what's called the means, right? The means, when you have motive, opportunity, and means usually means like, they have the means to commit the crime. And some people think that's only, the strength and will and, all these things, right? But it also means like the capability of committing the crime in the manner that it was committed without leaving DNA, without taking DNA. There was no blood outside of that house that trailed out, right? And if Kohberger didn't commit this, then that DNA on the sheath was just by accident. And somebody went in there with a knife in close combat, right? Or in close contact, I'm sorry, and committed this crime without leaving their DNA behind. Do you think that that's, what kind of person would you logically think could commit a crime like that? You're thinking somebody that knows, how not to leave their DNA behind. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that a college kid who's heartbroken, who's in his emotions at the time, because his girlfriend's leaving to Austin, he's going to have the thought process to put on gloves, put on booties, put on coveralls or whatever the case, and go commit a crime silently in the night? That's usually not the case. Those type of crimes, when it's, domestic or, um, where there's a crime of passion, those aren't very well planned out. If it's somebody who, if it's a frat kid that's drunk, it's 4:00 in the morning, they were at a party. That doesn't make any sense to me. How did they not leave hair behind? How did they not leave sweat behind? They're out there partying and drinking and getting drunk. And, you go in there, you commit a crime like that. When you're intoxicated, Blue, can you answer this? Do you sweat more?
Some people do, yeah, because you're. Some people heat up. Well, I know I sweat more when I drink. That's
I do too, man. I mean, it's
feel like
terrible,
more
but
harder.
right,
Because you
it's
dehydrate faster with the alcohol. It dehydrates you. But
I
one of the
think,
other things that I
oh, go ahead.
oh no, sorry. You
go ahead,
can
Blue. I want to hear what you said.
Okay, I said, well, one of the other things that I would say that has me more convinced that it can be him is that this was, to me, a planned out crime.
Mm-hmm.
There was almost any shred of evidence but just the knife sheath. If he wouldn't have forgot that, they'll still be looking for somebody, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. I mean, maybe one of the cameras might have caught the car, but without a front license plate and not being able to read the back license plate, it'd be harder to find the car because there's a bunch of white cars and there's white Elantras without license plates. In that area,
Right.
there's not that many. So the other fact is, if it was like a crime of passion or crime of opportunity, those are messy. I mean, the crime scene was messy, as per what we hear, right? But to cover your tracks, not leave any footprints on the way out, not leave any evidence, not leave any DNA. It was planned to me. It was pretty high thought out plan. Um, I guess.
I personally think that he's been planning it his whole life. Like he's been every step of the way. And like you said, he's very intelligent and took
Mm-hmm.
classes in forensic. So I think he's just, in my opinion, I think he's arrogant and thought that he could do it, that he's smarter than everyone else. Just in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's kind of that kind of goes along with a little bit with what we think. I think, I'm not sure what Blue thinks, but me personally, I think there's a multitude of things that went on, and maybe some stuff we don't even know about that contributed to his mindset and why he committed this crime. Trying to put logic to something like this, it's difficult because it's an unlogical thing. You don't expect somebody to go in and commit a quadruple homicide on 4 strangers, just to either prove something to himself or to others. It's tough, and it's tough to think that that's the only reason. People want to think that there has to be a bigger reason, and not necessarily true. He was having a very tough time. A lot of people say, oh man, he was a PhD student, he was going up, his life was ahead of him. He also got fired from every job he'd ever had, including his teaching assistant job. And many of those jobs that he got fired from were because he didn't treat women correctly or something like that. He was kicked out of his law enforcement school. He was getting kicked out as a TA. Now, the only place that he, I guess, excelled was in the sales. And we found out that majority of that was online. So, how, you know what I mean? So there's a bit of a pattern here, and a consistent one when it comes to Bryan Kohberger, and he didn't have, his life wasn't going so great. They were firing him. They fired him December 19th. That was before his arrest. It had nothing to do with his arrest. And so,
I thought he was fired before he left before he
No,
left Washington?
no, he was given a bunch of different
Like,
what's it called? Like they had meetings where behavioral plans and stuff.
yeah.
And what ended up happening was they gave him one in early November, and then after that he started grading people easier. And then I want to say early December, um, he got a letter from his professor saying, we've seen some improvement, but there's still some more to go. And then I think it was December 9th, he got into an argument with his professor, and then he got a letter saying, hey, apparently it's clear you haven't changed, right? And that this is basically conduct unbecoming of a teaching assistant here. And the guy that he was dealing with was he was an experienced lawyer, and so he, in criminal law, so he's probably dealt with a lot of criminals himself, and I don't know, maybe he could tell something. It was very quickly, it was like in September.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
I think he does not. I think he lacks self-awareness, because I think he was shocked when the bar that he went to, that you can't go up to women and just ask their address out of the blue. I think when the owner of the bar told him that, I don't think he knew that was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Bro Man comes in with a $10 super chat. Says, thoughts on this possibility? A DoorDasher sees Xana grab her food off porch. Explains how the PCA words a DD's confirmation of delivery. That would make sense. That would definitely make sense. She waves, and I'm assuming she means she honks. Heard on leaked video from building 1330 in response. If you're talking about the honk at 407 on the Linda Lane footage, I think that's actually from the white Elantra. My theory is that the probable cause says that the DoorDash was received at 4 a.m. When you receive an item, that's not when the DoorDash got there. That's usually when the DoorDash guy or gal is leaving, right? And I mean, when I order DoorDash, and by the time I get outside and I've been notified, the DoorDasher's driving off, right? So if she got it at 4 and the DoorDasher's driving off, Bryan Kohberger allegedly passed by, I think it was like at 3:50 or something like that. And then again at 4:58 or 4:05. And so there was like probably, I think it was like a 10 or 8-minute difference there between the time that he passed by and didn't. And what I think happened was there was probably like a light on to indicate to the DoorDasher that, hey, this is where our house is, because their house was kind of tricky to find. You know what I mean? It said King Road, but the house faced Queen Road, right? So I would assume that she would have left the light on. If Kohberger around at 3:55 or whatever, and then back at 4:05, and the DoorDash was dropped and delivered and got out of there by then, it's possible Kohberger didn't know that there was a DoorDash delivery. All he knew is there was a light on, right? And so if he passes by at 3:50, the light is on, passes by at 4:05, light is off, that means that that's an indication that maybe perhaps it's go time. So when he's driving up, I think he accidentally hits his horn. Maybe perhaps while he's grabbing his kit. I think he had a kit, or even if it wasn't Kohberger, whoever committed this crime had a kit with him, probably with a change of clothes, shoes, things of that nature, just so to make sure that less opportunity to get DNA and things like that inside his car. And I think he was probably, getting his stuff ready, and he hit the horn. I mean, if you watch that footage, he passes by 3 times, just passes by after 4 o'clock.
What time did he hit his horn?
At 4:07.
Okay.
And he drives by easily, right? I mean, he just goes around and leaves. But after 4 o'clock, at that 4:05 is when he starts to drive kind of weird, right? He does that weird stop in front of the Linda Lane camera, and he pauses there for about 11 seconds, and then he reverses and goes back the other way. He hadn't done that. right? Now, according to the probable cause affidavit, when he comes back the other way, he attempts to park or do a 3-point turn there at the in front of, but he fails. Right? He doesn't succeed at doing a park or a turnaround. So then he goes up to the intersection of King and Queen and then does a turn and then comes back. You can already see that nerves are getting to him, and he's already making mistakes, right? Like his
Yes.
driving is erratic. So I think it's highly likely that, well, honestly, there's a difference between, preparing for the crime and then committing the crime. He could have done the preparation and had all those things done to a T. But then when it came down to actually committing the crime, it's plausible that he accidentally left that sheath behind on accident, just like BTK left his gun behind at one time.
Yes, I
I
heard that.
hope that all made sense.
Yes, it did. Yes, I did hear about the gun. I think that it's strange that he went in that house when there were like 2 unknown cars there, and he still went in that house. Um, I think it didn't matter to him, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Run that by me again.
Kaylee's car was new, and I think Ethan's car was there too. So they had, 2 extra unknown cars there, and he still went in. And I believe he went into the sliding glass door. I believe he went in through that, went upstairs, passed away those 2 children, and then came downstairs and ran into Xana, and that's what happened in that situation.
Right. So first, I think that let's talk about the cars. Before this crime had happened, there was a double homicide not too far away, where a person went into a house and took the lives of two people. And a lot of people were trying with a knife as well. And a lot of people were trying to connect those 2 crimes or that crime with this one. Because I think they both happened like on the 13th or something like that of the month. And which is kind of weird, I'll be honest. There was some weird connections there. But police said that it's not related. It's probably because they probably have some information or DNA or something like that to somebody in that case as well. They just haven't gotten it back or whatever the case may be. Well, anyways, that case didn't get any publicity. Like nobody knew about it until this case happened, right? So
Right.
I was watching, I don't remember what it was, 48 Hours maybe, and they were talking to one of Kohberger's friends from a high school, or from around the time that he was consuming heroin. And he was talking about the time when he spoke to him and he had cleaned up and he had talked about, going to law school and that, or criminology, or being a criminology major. And he said something to the effect on the text messages like that he wanted to solve high profile cases. And, I thought that before I had heard that may have been one of the motives in this case, that he wanted this to be a very high profile case. He wanted this to gain attention. So he wanted more victims, more than one, but than 2. So if somebody was parked there, that's just another victim to increase the amount of persons that he would take. That way it would build more, be more. Look at what happened. It became one of the biggest cases, if not the biggest cases, since Gabby Petito.
Exactly. It's sad that some cases get all this publicity and others don't get any. I think that's something about the 13th. I think that means something. I'm thinking that maybe someone in Moscow allegedly could have done that and then helped Bryan do this murder. But that's just my opinion, allegedly. And
the only thing
I
about
don't know.
it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. All right, so as far as having an accomplice, they have Bryan Kohberger's phone and they have his what do you call it? They got his phone. They have his computer towers. They forensically gone through them. I think there would be some sort of evidence of contact with another person, and if so, then they would be able to follow the breadcrumbs back to that person as well.
Did you know that Kaylee's sister named her baby after Maddie Kay?
Yes.
And,
Yeah, I did know.
And that she was in room 1113, and she had the baby like at 421, which is about the time that they passed. So I thought that was interesting. Do you think that, because he thought he wasn't going to get caught, so do you think he wanted to be famous with this, but just nobody know that it's him?
I mean, I don't think so. I think he was frustrated and upset with the local, area. He was getting rejected as a teaching assistant. Pullen Police Department didn't want him. He was losing his job. He probably didn't have much luck with women. It didn't sound like it. In fact, there were some PhD students that were keeping a tally on him because he was being a little weird and would follow and constantly ask this certain girl out. And, he creeped out. And so to the point where these students, like I said, kept a tally on it. So all these things are happening. And I think that was just kind of more fuel to the fire. I think there was a lot that went into it. But as intelligent as he is, he knows that he can't commit the crime in Pullman because he'll get caught with cameras. He knows he can't commit the crime against some of these people that have rejected him because he's too personal with them. He's in contact with them. It would be an easy trace back to him. Right. So he had to do it somewhere else, somewhere close though. And that way, all of it get mixed up as an embarrassment. If they couldn't have solved this, it would have been embarrassing to that department. And so, go ahead, Blue.
And I said there is that theory that he might have met him or known of them because he went to one of the only vegan restaurants in town, and they worked there. Well, semi-vegan, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I personally think he was he probably went for a drive one night and he was looking for a place that had a big party, that had a he was probably looking for a sorority house and a lot of people in it. And he found the one with the biggest party. And the reason why is there's a lot of people going in and out, a lot of shoes, a lot of DNA, a lot of prints. And, it makes it harder to single him out if he were to accidentally leave something behind. And if he did, let's just say, a sweat or something, he could always just say, hey, I was there the night before at the party. But what he left behind was on the sheath. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. Thank you, Bud Ford, for your $2 super chat. Says June 13, 2021, Boozman Stephen Kilwing. Yeah, that is the case that I was talking about. And then I wanted to answer this question. I had it up there. It said, please explain how a party house is not full of DNA. It didn't say that it wasn't full of DNA. What they said was that there was 3 unidentified DNA samples in 2 different areas, 1 outside in a glove and 2 around where 2 of the bodies were, in the area where 2 of the bodies were. That doesn't mean that was the only DNA there. It just means that those were the ones that were unidentified. They could have identified all the other DNA and cleared those suspects or subjects out of there. So it's just a crazy wording, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say because they did do quite a few clearance of people that were in the house for the parties, and to be unidentified is because they don't have any records. So it's not like they're imaginary people. They just never had anything to be fingerprinted or put in CODIS for.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And they probably, there was probably like hundreds of kids that have been in that house, and they all, so it's normal for their fingerprints and stuff to be in there. But
these people would probably clean their house too sometimes, so they would wipe away old prints and
I'm
Uh,
if you look into the pictures of the windows or into the windows of the house, you can see remnants of the party from Friday night.
yeah,
There's a table set up with a beer pong table with bottles there. There's going to be DNA on those bottles. There's going to be DNA on those cups. It's going to be crawling with DNA, but they were able to probably identify it. They probably went out there, talked to a lot of people, had people come forward, to them if they were at that house. It'd probably be best if you came forward, to clear yourself. Because if your DNA comes out in the house and you're not coming forward, it looks kind of suspicious, right? So, I think that was probably game plan there. I think they had 50 something FBI agents and I don't know how many officers. That wouldn't be something that is, testing a few students out of their capabilities. You know what I mean?
Yes. Do you think, I mean, I think it's kind of impossible. All the stars would have to align just right for someone to commit the crime and blame it on and leave that touch DNA on the sheath and have Brian's phone and turn it off for 2 hours. That
Yeah.
what do that's a little far fetched for me. And then the girls didn't have any curtains, so you could see. I don't know if he was stalking them because you could see right through those windows.
Well, I'll say
And
this
how?
that, oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, what
How
I'll
did
say about that,
how
about
does
the no
somebody?
curtain stuff, Enan Harsh was on Truth and Transparency once. And he had said that he had gone because he lived in an apartment complex that was next door, and his apartment was kind of back there, where you have to drive up back to that back area. And he had said that he had recently been seeing a white Elantra parked back there, and that he thought it was a little bit weird because his ex-girlfriend had a white Elantra. So he was more like, man, is my ex-girlfriend stalking me? Not so much as this person stalking the girls down the street. You know what I mean? And so, I think that's a pretty big clue or hint to if he was around there or how close he was there. And what was your second part of that question?
I can't remember. Um, so they just, I just think they left their selves wide open because anybody could have parked there and seen everything. And then they had an alarm system in their house, and I guess they didn't opt to pay for it. Maybe they had an option and they didn't opt for it because they didn't use it. Are you
Um,
familiar with that?
Run that by me again. I was reading something in the chat. What was that?
They had a burglar alarm in the house, but they weren't
Oh,
using it.
I
So I
mean,
don't know if it was more money and they opted out.
I don't know. I don't know. I hadn't heard that there was a burglar alarm or anything like that. I heard that there was a lot of people that were going in and out of that house throughout, you know, the semester as they had parties and stuff like that. I never heard anything about an alarm.
I actually saw it. I'll send you a picture. I think that what you said the other day about being surprised how small the house is,
Mm-hmm.
because it looks pretty big. And so I would love to go in there and see how small it
Yeah, yeah.
actually
I had
might screen.
yeah, your mic's breaking up a little bit. I know a creator or two that have been to not the house obviously, but outside of the house, and that was one of the things that they had told me was like, uh, you would be surprised how small it is. It looks bigger in pictures, and it is 3-story, but it's really compact. I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's a good thing to know when you're trying to figure out what happened that night and what noises were made.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, they took down some of the walls, and of course, they took out the furniture. But you can still see how small it is, and I think the jury would really want to see that.
Mhm.
Go in there and check that out.
Given the size of the house or the apartment, who do you think that helps or benefits that it's small?
The killer, the
In trial?
unaliver, the unaliver. Sorry.
In trial, you think that'll benefit Bryan Kohberger?
No.
No.
No. Blue, what do you think? Do you think that the house size would benefit the defense or the prosecution in some way?
I think it can go both ways, because if the unaliving was happening, the defense could be like, how come nobody did come out and check on them? Because they would have been screaming, you know what I mean? But then,
Well, go ahead.
It being so small and compact, that's how he was able, if it's him, that's how he was able to do what he did within that short time frame.
Right. And I think that's quite possible. I think some people, I've heard this, that people are saying it would benefit, Bryan Kohberger, because it would, I guess, put doubt in the witnesses, Bethany and Dylan for not calling 911, not acting appropriately.
Right.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think the size makes a difference. She saw somebody walking out of the house, right? And she still didn't call 911. We don't know what she heard. There's rumors and speculation that she and Dylan texted each other, some things that are, I find kind of weird that they didn't call police if that ends up being true, but there's nothing confirmed about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe they just, when something you think is happening, they probably just talked each other out of it, maybe, and thought,
Right.
Yeah, because maybe they thought the kids were just going to get roughed up a little bit, maybe
Why would they think that? Why would they think that somebody's going to rough up somebody in their house?
I don't really want to bring that in, because I don't want to bring that in, but if they thought, allegedly, if they thought someone was going to come in there and just rough them up, and they were actually killed, I'm sure they were surprised.
Maybe, but I don't think that is true, because, again, we got to go back to the means. Who would be this person roughing them up? A drug dealer? A drug user? You think that they have the capability of going into this house and not leaving DNA behind, footprints, and any hair or any of those type of things when they're angry and upset because their money was tampered with? It's not very logical there. It doesn't really make any sense. I've seen where drug issues happen. They're not clean like this. This was almost, if it was like just an execution, it would have seemed more like a professional hit. But the fact that it was with a knife put it more personalized, made it more personal. So it didn't seem like it was that.
So do you think if it was the cartel, perhaps they would have used guns?
They would have sent the message, and the message would have been loud and clear. They don't do things like you would know if it was a cartel.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it is. I was just wondering, how did he leave without any footprints? How did he leave the house without any footprints?
Well, we have to wonder, how were the bodies or the victims? How was their positioning when he attacked them? Right? If they were in bed, gravity is going to pull blood down to the mattress, not to his feet.
Gotcha.
So there's no, he's not going to get blood on his feet. Now, if there was a bloody print walking towards the sliding glass door, it may not even be his. That was found under a black light and luminol test with black amino acid or whatever it's called. So it wasn't even seen visibly. It could have been there that night. It could have been there a week before. It could have been there the night that there was, 150 people there. Maybe somebody got a nosebleed or something and dropped some blood and somebody stepped on it. You know, it could be explained by a number of reasons. It could have been, you know, if Kohberger allegedly walked down the stairs and there was blood on the knife and it dripped on the floor, and when he left, he stepped on it. That's quite a possibility as well. But, you know, I would think that if he stepped on it, they would have found something in his car, on the brake pedal, things of that nature. So I think he changed outside, to be honest with you. I think he changed outside. And, you know, you use those Vans slip-on shoes because those are easy to get in and out. You know, there's no shoelaces, and they kind of stick to you. And so, you know, he probably had a couple of pairs of those, ones that were clean, ones that were not. I would assume that he would have just kind of jumped out of whatever he was wearing and put on a easy to, you know, warmers and a sweater, put on the Vans shoes and be out of there very quick.
I think they only sell Van shoes in Moscow. That's what everybody wears. And I think they only sell white trucks because everybody seems to have those. And the white Elantras. How did they got to him, but there's 22,000 Elantras. So
Well,
what made it get to him?
That was the genetic tree. That's what got to him. I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to be honest, whether it's one way or the other, I don't care. I'm about facts, not feelings. You know what I'm saying? So they got his name because the genetic tree, the FBI did. Once the FBI got his name, they said, hey, you might want to look into Bryan Kohberger. And they looked into him. They probably went to his house. I think they found out the 20th of December. You know, they probably went to his apartment, you know, just kind of scoped things out, realized he wasn't there. That's why they had to use that license plate reader in Colorado to figure out where he was. And then they didn't get eyes on him until like the 25th of December. You know, and that's when they pulled. Go ahead.
It's 2022. And when he goes around, you know, the loops around Linda Lane and stuff, and they can see the car, but they can't see the license plate. I mean, what kind of camera is that?
That's pretty common. I mean, in the Linda Lane footage, you couldn't see the car that was parked right there at night. Those two cars that were parked there. I think in the screenshot from the other surveillance camera that was out in front of 1112 that got the vehicle probably doing the 3-point turn. That one, you couldn't see the license plate either. So it's probably just because those are home security surveillance type of things and not so much like high-tech security surveillance that you would normally get like at a business or something.
Yeah. And then I'm the one that put the one up there about, you know, people saying that Jack's involved. I mean, we already thought Ms. Goncalves, right? And then she said that they had a good understanding that he's not involved, and this police already investigated him and they cleared him.
No, that was Jack DeCore. Jack S. Jack Showalter. He was the guy that supposedly that allegedly walked with the girls to the grub truck and that they ditched. People think that they're going to get you for this. I can't believe you ditched them or something like that. You know, you can't really tell at that point what is said. You can hear what you want to hear, but it's very difficult to hear. And, you know, as far as, you know, the Adam situation, you know, that was investigated, not just by the Goncalves family, but also by the police department. Like, again, do you guys think that these high college guys, bartender is going to be able to wipe their phone forensically clean so that, you know, when the police come and they look at their phone and they go to check out, you know, their messages and what they were saying, that they're not going to find out if there was some sort of drug involvement at that moment? Like, come on.
Or a plan. Adam was roommates with Jack B. Did you know Jack S. had recently gotten thrown out of the fraternity and was living at Linda Lane?
I'm not sure if that's accurate, to be honest with you. From what I understand, I've heard of a lot of things of him getting kicked out of, and from every single one that I've found out, they've been debunked. So I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't seen anything that has confirmed that. And I don't know why that would be confirmed out there, given the fact that that's has nothing to do with the case. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that wouldn't be like reported by news. You know, that's something that somebody would have had to have said, like on Reddit or 4chan. And unfortunately, there are some trolls. It's not very difficult for me. Like, I could go tomorrow and create a username and just put it University of Idaho fraternity student, and I can just easily say, hey, there was a fight, and this did happen, and that happened, and a lot of people would believe it, and it not be absolutely true. And so,
Gotcha.
you know, again, if there was some sort of, it comes back to the means. You know, law enforcement checked Maddie and Kaylee's phones. They went through them. You know, they were there. The phones were there. They didn't get wiped. If there was some sort of plan of, you know, narcotics, and there was this scheme, it would have been found out. And it wouldn't have taken them 7 weeks to make an arrest. It would have taken them 3. You get what I'm saying?
It would have been like maybe 10 people involved or something, and one of them would have talked. You know, would have gotten out. Don't you think?
Right.
Obviously, because people. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Blue? Do you think that there's a possibility that, you know, these girls were running some sort of scheme like this and it not be detected on any of the device or any of their, you know, phones or computers or any of the things that they had in their house?
From the time that the police and everybody's had to investigate with their stuff, something would have been found by now. They would have already put that out there.
Yeah.
By someone, by someone's phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they took computers and they've already had the phone records probably looked at, and the parents probably looked at it if they have the codes with their you know, attorneys and whoever's helping them out there. That narrative would have came out already.
So I want to answer this real quick. Kaylee's phone was missing. They had to use her iCloud for info. That's not true at all. The Goncalves family didn't have access to her phone because Moscow Police Department had her phone. So they had to use their phone records to contact people that she was calling and getting calls from. I want to clarify that. I did talk to Ms. Goncalves about this. All right, carry on, guys.
Because the phone was mirrored. Kaylee's phone was mirrored to their phone, and that's how they got the numbers.
No, she told me that they had to get the phone records because they didn't have access to the text messages and things of that nature. So if it was mirrored, they would have had access to the text messages. The only thing that they had access to was the phone records because technically Kaylee's phone was her mother's phone. She was still on her mom's plan.
I'm so sorry. That's what I thought. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. I just want to clear, I just want to set the record straight when it comes to some things because, there is a lot of misinformation that is out there. And, unfortunately, sometimes there's a misinformation that's put out there to try to control a certain type of narrative and to make things a story. So that way this, crime can be more sensualized or sensualized. I can't even pronounce the word. And bigger than what it is. Yeah, there you go. I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
And so bigger than what it is. And at the end of the day, most of the time in real life, it's not that. It's not like that. And you know what I mean?
Well, that's why we're trying to stick more to the facts. We're not trying to go down the, causing too many controversy because we've already done that. We've already been.
We have to not listen to the noise around that.
We've
already been nailed to the wall a few times.
Well, for me, it's not so much that. It's more like what makes logical sense. Unfortunately, let's look at this and let's be honest. There's a gag order still on this case that it's not unnatural for people to be suspicious. What are you hiding? Right? That's the first thing that comes to mind when somebody is quiet about something. What are you hiding? If Kohberger remains silent, what are you hiding? If the prosecution wants to put a gag order, what are you hiding? Right? And us as, consumers of content and consumers of true crime and watchers of true crime, want to see everything right away. And, it's not how it works sometimes. But in this scenario, I do think that they've been a little bit too secretive. Had they just kind of been open about some things, I think that there'd be a lot less misinformation. And that was kind of why, when I talked to Goncalves, that's one of the things that they had said. They wanted transparency. They want, they don't want anybody to have any questions. They don't have, like, if Bryan Kohberger did this, they don't want to see or have some sort of like free Kohberger because he didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. They want the world to see what the evidence is against them. So that way there is no question. And whether it's him or somebody else, and that's kind of the energy that I've gotten from them. You know what I mean?
Yes, they want to see the justice system played out. And
Right.
I believe there should be cameras in the courtroom too. And then I personally think that he might walk if the defense can throw enough stuff at the wall that something will stick. You know how you get all those junk, throw it at the wall, and
Right.
that's just my opinion. But what do you think?
Normally I would say there's some issues here, questions about the warrant for his phone pings and for, his phone connections or where he was the night of the incident, because they utilized his schooling as a reason to pull his locations from his phone. And I didn't think that necessarily is enough to pull a warrant. But to this day, the defense team for Bryan Kohberger hasn't, that issue. So it probably appears that maybe there's a little bit more to that situation. So maybe that is a little bit more concrete. They didn't fight the fact that the DNA is Bryan Kohberger's. That was another thing that I was, like, all right, they're not arguing that either. Their arguments are more of like, trying to get off on technicalities. And I think those are more of throwing mud on the wall. Like this whole genetic tree thing, it makes zero sense why they want it, the workup. I mean, not so much that they want it. I understand why they want it. Let me rephrase. It makes zero sense as to why anybody thinks that it will change the outcome, because that genetic makeup wasn't used to, basically, it was just to point an arrow, right? Now, when it came to the warrant for Bryan Kohberger's bugle swab, for his DNA on his cheek, it had nothing to do with the genetic makeup. They used, his phone pings. They may have used the DNA from his dad, right? That probably was in there. I would assume that was in there, but they wouldn't have the genetic tree. That genetic tree wasn't used in any situation that led to Bryan Kohberger's arrest. It was just used to point in a direction, right? You're not going to see the that information used as to why they got his arrest, as to why they searched his house or his phone or any of those things. They can't, because then they would have to turn over how they figured it out, right?
Yeah.
And well, not only that, but they also have to test Bryan Kohberger's DNA to the DNA on the sheath for them to be able to testify. Because at this point, the FBI hasn't done that. They have not tested Bryan Kohberger's DNA to the DNA sheath. So they can't say with 100% certainty. So their information isn't valid in court. That's why the prosecution doesn't want to use it. They're not using it against Kohberger. And, it's like
poisonous tree, right?
No, there's no poisonous tree. Nothing was gained from it when it came down to what they're using against him. The fruit of the poisonous tree would have been if, like, for instance, there was a traffic stop and, well, you know what, let's stick to this situation. The fruit of the poisonous tree here would have been, let me see. Let's go with the phone pings. If the warrant for the phone pings wasn't right, if it was bad, if it was just his schooling, they go to a different judge and they say, hey, this isn't good. They have to throw out everything that they have found, all the information from that. That would be him being around the residence 12 times. That would be his phone turning off at 2:57 and then turning back on at 4:48, and that would be the activity that he had the next day. They wouldn't be able to use that in court because that would be fruit of the poisonous tree, right? They didn't use the genetic tree like that.
How often does that happen in your experience?
How often does what happen?
Poisonous tree.
The fruit of the poisonous tree. It happens actually quite often. Majority of the time, it's like if an officer thinks he pulls over somebody, then doesn't have probable cause to pull him over, and they find some drugs or something like that, but the stop was bad, so they can't charge him. That's typically what it is. In these type of situations with these high profile cases, you usually get the top of the top when it comes to detectives and investigators that are onto this case, and they're not going to make the mistakes, to be honest with you. What's up, Big Blue? You had a question?
I was gonna say, I mean, we see that happen quite a bit, but sometimes it doesn't go to court until something like really severe happens. I see people try to do that also in a lot of videos when they go report, record public offices and stuff like that. There's certain areas open to the public that you can record, but the people in the court don't want people recording. So, they call the sheriffs, they call the police, and they call a big old commotion for no reason.
And then I should know this answer, but if they say, well, if the jury says we're not going to do the death penalty, are they allowed to change it to life in prison?
I mean, they can change it whenever they want. That is just something that they can use now. A lot of people are saying like, oh, if they don't use it, they can't use it later, or whatever the case may be, or they have enough. Honestly, when it comes to prosecutors, the strategy is to charge them high so that they plead down. It's never the other way around.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
A jury doesn't typically, currently a jury wouldn't know if it was a death penalty case until it actually started trial and it wasn't changed. Once the trial starts, that's when everybody knows about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's the punishment that comes with this. The defendant asks for it. The jury, they can ask the jury, and the jury can say no, or the judge can say no, and then the jury can recommend life without parole, or the judge can go, no, I'm not going to grant the DP, and it's going to be life without parole. So just because the prosecution is going for it doesn't necessarily mean if convicted that's going to happen. The prosecution goes for the highest charge and highest penalty in hopes that you're going to come down and take a bargain for something less, because it's a win in their books. That's very
interesting. I never knew that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. That's what, when I was going to the academy, that's one of the things that they taught us. They're like, hey, you charge them with the highest, and you let the lawyers figure that out when it comes down to court, if they're going to plea bargain down or not. That's the strategy.
What about hung jury?
What about it? Like, is he going to get one? I don't know. I don't know what the evidence is. You know what I mean? I don't know what the entire evidence is.
I just mean like in general. If there's a hung jury, they just have to redo the trial. Is that correct?
Yeah, they can. Typically, like there's a little bit of time. Isn't that like Danny Masterman, the 70s show guy? He had a hung jury, and then they just retried him, and they found him guilty, right? He got 30 years. So, they just retry you. You have to be acquitted, So, a lot of people say you just got to convince one, and that's not necessarily true.
So
if there's a hung jury,
can the judge overrule what the jury says? What their conclusion is? Can the judge overrule it?
I don't really know. That's probably a question for a lawyer. I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not a lawyer?
No.
You are
No.
so smart.
Well,
Um,
I read the book quite a bit, but I'm not a lawyer. From my understanding of it, it can happen, but I don't think I've ever seen it happen or heard of it happening. But I really don't know.
and then I also want to know. Obviously, they did the grand jury, and the defense was not very happy. Why don't every prosecution do the grand jury then? Because it seems like it benefits them.
That's typically how it's done.
Does that make sense?
Idaho might have different rules and regulations, but most of the time it's by grand jury. And 9 times out of 10, you might have something that is going up for grand jury indictment, and they don't even know they're being charged with something. There's an investigation going against them. It goes to a jury. He's not aware of it. He doesn't know. They say, all right, there's enough evidence. There's the indictment. They go get a warrant, and then he finds out, or she finds out.
Because it's a secret. The closed hearing.
It's not so much a secret, but they don't have to notify anybody.
What do you think about the FBI going to that lady's house? The protocol.
I don't think they broke any protocol.
Yeah, I don't think they broke protocol. Yeah, they didn't. Go ahead, Blue.
She was recanting her statement, so they had to go back and collect her statement what she wanted it. But I'm not sure if it probably would have been more professional if they would have probably brought her into the office and had some more witnesses there. But I don't think they didn't break any laws, I think.
So I saw right here. WSU mom Kim says they learned his name from it. It's relevant, right? I'm going to explain this. Let's just say Big Blue is doing things that are illegal. I'm going to say that he is he's selling narcotics, right? And Jaime comes up to me, and Jaime tells me, hey, man, he's a CI. Let's say I'm an officer. He's a CI. He comes up to me and he says, hey, man, I bought this stuff from this guy. It was bad stuff. He didn't give me enough, blah, blah, blah. And, I can't arrest him for what he did. It didn't happen in my presence or view. So, and he's my CI and he's giving me information of a bigger fish. So I'm going to be like, all right, sounds good. And he's going to tell me, because this is what always happens, I'm not going to testify in court. You're the detective. You detect. Go figure it out. I gave you the name. I'm not going to testify. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to show you anything. I'm not going to show you pictures of anything that they gave me, because that'll compromise him as well, or her. So all we have is a name and somebody pointing the finger in a direction. Now, that's not enough for me to go get a warrant and kick Blue's door down and go through everything to find things, right? So go ahead. So what I would have to do is do some surveillance, be an investigator. And if Blue is, in fact, dealing narcotics out of his house, there's going to be some, signs of that. You're going to see vehicles passing by at odd hours of the night. You're going to see people coming quickly and going quickly, things like that, right? You might even see like people flaunting things, whether it's money or drugs. Now, seeing somebody or even somebody was, purchasing drugs from Big Blue, that doesn't necessarily mean he's like a dealer. He could just be, somebody's friend giving somebody his personal use, right? So you need more evidence than that. It's not enough. So then you go and you knock down one of these cars that leaves. You light them up, you get probable cause them up, you pull them over, and you find probable cause to search the vehicle, and you find some narcotics. You bring them in, you arrest them, and you scare the living crap out of them, tell them that you're going to put them in jail for 5 to 10 years and they're never going to see daylight and they're going to have to go this and that. Most of them will break and say, I got it from Big Blue. Now, you don't want just one, because that, like I said, that's just, it could be his buddy, maybe recreational. You got to get a few of them. Now, not back to back either, because that's going to be a little bit obvious, right? So You have to wait a little bit, maybe 6-8 weeks, and then boom, you hit them again. Boom, you hit them again. And then at that point, you're like, hey, I got these 3 people, and I have all these cars coming in. I have enough evidence, on my own to get a warrant to go into Blue's house now. So now I get this warrant. I go knock down. I find all this narcotics, all this money, all this evidence of Big Blue committing this crime, and I arrest him. Now, when we go to trial, I have a very strong case against him. And I don't have to use or never even bring up the fact that, Jaime came up to me and pointed the finger at Blue. Just because he did that doesn't mean that my case isn't good. It's a good case, and it has good evidence, and it was done right.
Have you
You know
ever
what I mean?
have you ever seen or heard of a CI getting unalived because of that situation?
Me personally, no.
I was just wondering how common it was.
Yeah,
I
me personally, I don't know.
You always hear about it on the TV, and that was fictional, okay, guys. The only thing that if you ever see cars coming through my house, and I might be delivering something, it might be tamales or something, okay?
I love you, Big Blue.
It'll be the health department, and yes, I wear my hairnet and gloves when I make my tamales.
I think I said that story a little too real, right?
Yeah.
So that's how the FBI is treating this. They're treating the genetic tree as Jaime. That's Jaime in this scenario, coming and saying, hey, it's that guy. You should look at him. He's probably doing something he shouldn't be doing. I'm not going to tell you how I know or why I know. You do your job, go investigate this guy and come up with a case against him. And they go do that, and that's what they did. They went and they pulled trash from his mom and dad's house. They pulled his, warrant for his cell phones, and, they ended up, raiding his house. And then once they arrested him, they went and conducted search warrants on his apartment, his office, and his vehicle, and his mom's house. So all of that was done in preparation for his arrest and had nothing to do with the genetic tree. Then once they had him in custody, they test his DNA to the DNA on the sheath, and it's a match, and bada beam, bada boom, you got a guy.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's fair that he gets to have vegetarian food at the jail?
They do a lot of specific diets for people. I mean, I was just watching a pretty interesting show that a lot of people in jail actually become Jewish because they get better meals if they're Jewish. They get kosher meals.
Oh.
So they actually convert in jail. They see the rabbi and say, "Oh, maybe in this part of my mom's family, there's somebody that's Jewish. Now I'm Jewish because I'm in jail and I want better food." And as long as the rabbi signs that little paper, they get their meal plan changed. So
I thought that was really interesting because I thought they just get whatever they make that day, in the kitchen.
I mean, I think if it's like vegan and now with all the new laws and stuff, that they can't really force them to eat what's not part of their dietary. Now they say they're vegetarian and they might, provide salads for them all day. I don't know, but they do try in some cases. I think they have to because it's against it's a human something act where they can't neglect you because of your beliefs. But even eating is one of the things that they have to take care of. Even in hospitals or certain people that are getting taken care of in hospitals, you have a big old note on their chart saying, "Hey, this person's this religion, no pork." Know this because they're and the same thing in the jails. This guy can't eat that, so he has to eat part of this, and then that's probably why they give you the option to choose what you want. Sometimes, I've never been to jail, never been to prison, so I don't know, but I know it's a little bit. But I gotta get going, guys. I gotta go to work. I'll take care.
Yeah, this is gonna be the last question that I'm gonna do, Blue. You have a good one, my man. So AG says the FBI was involved in the investigation. So in Daniel's scenario, it would be like a police officer telling Daniel the tip. Yeah, that happens quite a bit. In fact, I got a tip once from the DEA that there was going to be a big bundle of cocaine coming in through town, and that I needed to, pick up probable cause and make the stop and the arrest on a certain vehicle. And so just because they told me that, and I knew that there was going to be cocaine in the vehicle, I couldn't just pull the vehicle over for no reason. I had to wait for that vehicle to run a stop sign, which is what it did before I lit it up. Now, the purpose for the stop was just running of the stop sign. Once we pulled the vehicle over and we found the drugs, it literally had basically my case had nothing to do with the DEA. The DEA used my case with a bunch of cases that to build a bigger case against those people and other people above them. So yeah, getting a tip from a police officer agency happens all the time. It's not uncommon.
And the FBI, let's say you have a case that's like a very small case against this person. Will the FBI say you need to leave them alone because we have a bigger case going on, so you need to let that go? Does that make sense?
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it to a certain extent. Yeah, not and it's not so much let them go because you can't that's illegal to tell an officer to do, but it's kind of like, hey, this guy's helping me out, blah blah blah. And is there maybe perhaps something a little bit lighter that they could get, maybe a citation or something? Seen that happen quite a bit. And you had somebody that was willing to dime out a few people that were burglars. In fact, I was not a part of that, but I had seen it personally. And so I had seen where a detective came in and there was an officer who had arrested somebody that was this detective's CI. And he was like, hey, this guy's helping me out with this case. We're going to court. Can you hook me up, help him out? And, at that time, it wasn't a big deal. Now it's more of an officer does that. It's more illegal. And so, I mean, it wasn't illegal then, but it was just kind of like, you can't really do that, but it's not asking him to do so. It's kind of a gray line, because if you go and ask an officer to drop a ticket, or you ask an officer to drop a charge without, just kind of, you have to ask the right way. If it's directly, it's illegal. If you go around it like, oh man, that's my cousin. Oh, that is, I'll help you out. That's kind of the way it is. You can't literally ask for it. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a way of stretching the rules, so to speak, but it gets the job done sometimes, man. That detective, he had more arrests on people that were breaking into people's houses and committing violent crimes and theft than any other detective. So was he hooking somebody up for a DWI? That I think it was changed from a DWI to reckless driving or something like that. I don't remember. And yeah, it helps them out, but man, you get some other people off the streets that are doing some pretty horrible stuff. You know what I'm saying? But that was also a long ass time ago. I haven't been in the field for a very, very long time. So things have probably changed so much, since then. But, I don't know. I mean, it's probably something that an officer can get arrested for now.
I have one more question about the
Yes, ma'am.
body cam. It really bothers me that they keep blurring stuff out and taking audio out. And I'm not the only one who hears it, so it's not like I'm making it up. It's in the comments. And how are they going to get away with that?
Well, they get away with that because we're not privileged to that. Now, the courts, and, if a jury wanted to see it, if it came up in court, they wouldn't see a redacted version of it.
Well, like the one I think it was in Seattle, where the cop was going 70 and
Mhm.
and he ran over the. I was surprised that they showed that, because they could have said, it's too whatever, it's too gory for
Right.
y'all to look at, and did a cover up, and then so nobody would have seen that, and then
Right.
the body cam on the other guy, they could have somehow made that disappear. Is that correct? I mean, illegally.
I mean, I don't think so. Not anymore. When I left, things weren't as technical as they are now. There's those cam footage, or dash cam footage, body cam footage, that automatically gets downloaded as soon as you get within a mile from the police station. Like you have no control of that. Yeah, it's through the cloud and it automatically downloads. And, there's very few people that have that. And it needs multiple people to gain access, so that there's no tomfoolery or things of that. And like I said, that was over a decade ago.
Oh, I thought that was recently. No,
that was over a decade ago. So, now I have no idea what type of technology that they have now that could, download or whatever. But yeah, everything's cryptic. There's no way that that's going to happen. If there's body cam footage now, I
can't remember when body cams became mandatory. Do you?
That's policy depending on the department. I couldn't tell you. Each department's different.
Okay. I want to thank you for letting me be on your show, and
you're
for
welcome.
everybody to hit that like, put in the comments really kind words for the families, and put in the comments that you want me to come back, because I'm like, I told Daniel I wasn't going to go rogue, but I'm going to go rogue and say that I really enjoyed it and want to come back. And so I appreciate it though so much, Daniel, for you having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
It was a great conversation. You had some great questions and a lot of questions that a lot of folks are curious about. And so I thought we were able to explain quite a bit away. So I want to thank you for coming on. And I'm sure I'll continue to hear from you, and maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a good night. For everybody in the comment section and watching and the replay crew, please hit that like and subscribe. I'll be coming on probably Sunday morning for members only. Join if you're interested.